Implementation of gas master plan dominates discussion as Minister of State, Petroleum Resources meets Senate committee.
Head of Civil Service of the Federation rewards excellence in service.
In Kogi State, former Deputy Speaker becomes Deputy Governor.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, our conversation centers on youth empowerment.
Youths constitute a large chunk of the populations or the populations of the nations of the world, and also play, of course, an undeniably crucial role in stimulating development, also galvanizing action in various sectors of the economy.
Well, the young ones are really leading the revolution of sorts. Curiously, however, while the vibrant Nigerian youths are hailed as leaders of tomorrow, those in other parts of the world are increasingly taking over the reins of management and leadership in various spheres of life, and thereby contributing to national development and loudly making their voices heard.
You're quite right. That the youth are the leaders of tomorrow is an expression I've heard since childhood. Now, as an adult, of course, with children of my own, I can still hear that cliche. Anyway, if a youth is actually defined as anyone between the ages of 18 and 35, as in Nigerian National Youth Policy says, then it's time for those in Nigeria, at least for those in Nigeria, that they went beyond their potential to being potential leaders as becoming active players in business and politics and perhaps other spheres of the nation's development.
Well, blessing, that can only be possible if the youth in Nigeria are empowered to assume the role that we all believe that they can play. And that's, of course, kind of role that their counterparts elsewhere are already playing. Now, you'll recall that Nigeria is certainly regarded as the most populous nation in Africa with the largest youth population also in the world, meaning that if the right investments are made, Nigerian youth will be a great resource for national and indeed global development. Well,
I recall too that President Muhammadu Buhari recently was quoted of saying that the goal, his own goal is to actually, or at least the administration's goal, is to comprehensively address youth unemployment in the country. Kingsley, to my mind, that means that the government or this administration is coming out with programs and policies aimed at empowering these young ones to actually play the role expected of them.
Well, listen, former President Olusegun Obasanjo was also recently quoted as saying that the Nigerian youth constitute the country's only hope for a real future. But then the questions are, what level of investments are required to ensure that indeed the youths are the future of tomorrow? And what opportunities are there for the youths of the country? And are there empowerment programs specifically targeted at addressing the problems of the young ones? We shall attempt to provide answers to these and other questions when the conversation begins in earnest on the course, of course, of Good Morning Nigeria.
You're quite right, Kingsley. These are the answers we shall be seeking as we talk to at least the concerns individuals that will be forming our guest panel this morning. My name is Blessing Abu, and I welcome you to this midweek edition of the program, Good Morning Nigeria.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Welcome once again also to the program, live as usual from the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And in the course of the program, we have our regular companion segments that you know pretty well, newspaper review, business, as well as entertainment news. In the meantime, we're going over to the newsroom, and here is Ronke Kolawole with the morning news. Hi, Ronke.
Hello, Kingsley, and welcome to the news. The State House has described as misconstrued the various interpretations to the UK's Telegraph newspaper on February 5, 2016. In a statement released in Abuja on Tuesday, February 9, Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, noted that the wave of negative reactions to the President's remark about the reputation of Nigerians abroad was as a result of a misunderstanding of President Buhari's point. The presidential media aide added that it was preposterous for anyone to imagine that the president of Nigeria would describe all the citizens of the country he leads as criminals, himself as a Nigerian, and when there are many Nigerians of honest living making their country proud all over the world. Malam Shehu called attention to the many efforts of President Buhari to clean up image of Nigeria, such as the war on corruption, stating that acknowledging you have a problem is the first step to profiling a solution. President Buhari is very aware of the problems the people of Nigeria face both at home and abroad, and away from admitting them, even as he focuses on solutions to bringing them to a permanent end. Despite the significant progress made in the fight against HIV/AIDS, Nigeria still records about 58,000 babies infected with the virus yearly, a situation the federal government and UNAIDS say is unacceptable.
We need government to really start thinking about a transition plan so they can start having domestic resources to pay for the treatment, because 95% of the people put on treatment today in Nigeria are paid by two big donors.
Drugs, which is life-saving, is something that we need to produce.
The National Assembly says its target date of February 25 to pass the 2016 appropriation bill will be realizable due to some irregularities being identified in the budgeting process. National Assembly correspondent Kudo reports on this and the budget defense by the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed.
To do a clean job, we have to produce a budget that is clean, that is thoroughly checked, that is implementable.
We have a lot of errors where figures are not tallying. We have cases of abnormal increment in personnel cost. We have a lot of complaints about imbalance in capital allocations across the various zones.
Until Nigerians begin to appreciate the fact that you are laying the foundation for your children and your grandchildren, right from the process of budgeting. That if you start to compromise the platform, or you decide to bring in bogus thing because you think you can enrich yourself, you are impoverishing your children and your grandchildren. This is the message.
You see very small parasitas, they have multiples of cleaning companies. Because it was a way of giving out contracts too, But I think we should change our attitude.
We now go straight to the State House, where the Permanent Secretary says the increase in 2016 budget proposal for the seat of government, notwithstanding fraud, is unthinkable in the planned expenditure profile. He stated this while defending the 2016 budget proposal before relevant committees of the National Assembly.
We can be accused of anything, but certainly not fraud. We could be overambitious, yes, because of the reasons that we have laid, appreciative of the sensitivity of the villa and the occupants. But we feel the opportunity has come to introduce the real change to the way of doing things, believing in our own humble opinion that it is the right thing to do.
The committee has listened carefully to the presentation. We were told, and we so believe, that these medical facilities are given to Nigerians free, and that they need to expand the scope of both in terms of equipments and services. I think this is all right, so that we discourage the tendencies of going outside the country in search of medical attention.
And still on budget defense, the Minister of Works, Housing and Power, Babatunde Fashola, said the Ministry of Works will complete a total of 200 road projects across the country. He was speaking while defending the 2016 budget proposal before the House Joint Committee on Works, Housing and Power.
Spend 268 billion naira on roads, the roads that serve the north and the south, the east and the west, that is likely to give more value. And like you rightly pointed out in your preamble, people need to get back to work so that we can re-engage our citizens.
50% consultancy and supervision, when you are leaving the real construction with the 50%, how viable will this be?
I was quite excited in the first meeting when I felt the pulse of the minister that he was not too keen on even breaking new projects.
Meanwhile, the non-implementation of the gas master plan dominated interactions between the Minister of State Petroleum Resources and the Senate Committee on Gas. National Assembly correspondent Dennis Adegunloye reports that there is also a discrepancy over the petroleum industry bill.
It's difficult for us to even know how much you have been spending on gas master plans from 2010 to date, despite the budgetary provision.
That master plan does not reflect what Nigeria has in terms of resources as at today. We need to go back to it. We are talking about technical issues that we must go back to.
And now to the judiciary, where the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Mahmoud Mohammed, called on legal practitioners to show more concern about the ends of justice in their practice rather than about their personal gains. He stated this at the commissioning of a law firm in Abuja.
It holds on every legal practitioner to always place the end of justice above any other consideration, be it cash or in kind.
And indeed the provision of a moot court, which in itself is another trailblazing activity.
That it will make for effective and efficient legal services, which obviously will impact positively on justice delivery generally, speedy dispensation of justice, specialization, mentoring. All this will come to fore.
In the meantime, the Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission, Professor Bem Angwe, has expressed concerns over the increasing number of persons languishing in the nation's prisons due to institutional gaps. This was at the inauguration of a formal working committee by the Institute to look into ensuring that the Nigerian law is properly and correctly gazetted for the benefit of the populace.
How do you punish someone who is not even aware of the existence of a particular penal provision? It is for that reason that the Commission has decided to put in place a committee of experts who would first of all identify the particular institutions that do have responsibility, not only to gazette, but to publish and to disseminate amongst Nigerians.
In fact, is there anything wrong in having some of our major laws translated into local languages? There are so many Nigerians who have got no job. There are many ways we can proactively engage Nigerians in disseminating access to information about Nigerian laws.
We now take a trip to Kogi State, where a former Deputy Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Simon Achuba, has been sworn in as Deputy Governor of the state. Governor Yahaya Bello, at the occasion, urged him to work assiduously for the rapid socio-economic development of the state.
This journey is going to be difficult. Not our character, not our strength, not by all that we know, but we will continue to call on Almighty God to guide us through.
I want to assure the people of the state that under the able and dynamic leadership of His Excellency Alhaji Yahaya Bello, the state will witness unprecedented unity and progress, which will be a source of pride to all of its citizens and stakeholders.
And now to security matters. Borno State government has approved the release of 100 million naira for the reconstruction of Dalori and Maori villages recently destroyed by insurgents. Governor Kashim Shettima stated this during a sympathy visit to the community.
Apart from 1 or 2 local government areas, the whole of Borno is under the control of the federal government. And even in those 1 or 2 local government areas, it has to do with the fact that the Boko Haram are not really holding on to those territories as their enclave per se.
12 civil servants have been honored for their diligence, punctuality and patriotism. Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Winifred Oyoita, said the honor is in keeping with the present administration's policy of rewarding efficiency, productivity and honesty.
That they would be publicly acknowledged and rewarded as a way of stirring up their patriotism and giving them more zeal to perform and using them as a positive example for others to emulate.
Well, what a slip of tongue I had there. 12 civil servants were honored and not 2. It's on that note we end the news for this morning. Let me just take you back to Kingsley and Claire and Blessing for the continuation of Good Morning Nigeria.
Well, Claire was on the program yesterday. Today it's Blessing Abu. We say that already you are getting set for the Valentine season and day, which is coming up on Sunday. Ron Kekola there. Thank you very much for the morning news on Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, it will be time for our business segment.
Or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You get 3 kinds of moms. The paranoid mom.
It's hot and it's dirty.
The cautious mom. And the Dettol mom. Only a Dettol mom knows that ordinary soaps aren't enough. She only trusts Dettol to protect her family from up to 100 illness-causing germs, which is why you can worry less and love more. Don't just be any mom, be a Dettol mom. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Introducing the new Dettol 55-gram soap with the same germ protection and quality at a more affordable price. Buy the new Dettol 55-gram soap for 80 naira only. Keep your family protected from germs.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, showing on the NTA. It's time now for business. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, underscores the role of ICT in the successful management of the Treasury Single Account, TSA. Here's Sheon Ogunloyi with the details.
All right, a very good morning to you all Nigerians. Here is the business news. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has expressed confidence in the Treasury Single Account TSA of the federal government of Nigeria. These, it believes, has helped in consolidating government's cost resources for better use.
I mean, first of all, the main benefit is when, as the example was being given, when lots of idle balances were lying, in commercial bank accounts, the government was required to borrow at a very high cost while it was having cash resources elsewhere. So with the TSA coming in, now all the cash resources are consolidated in one account.
Senior Economist, Fiscal Affairs Department of the Global Financial Institution also underscored the use of ICT in the successful management of the scheme.
So it has become a very complex structure, and such a complex structure would definitely require IT support, IT information system to better manage it, because it cannot be managed that well manually. So therefore the IT system is very important and key, and the GIPMIS, which is being implemented, I think all the MDAs that are on TSA, except some which are not fully funded, are already on the GIPMIS platform, and therefore they are using the TSA through the GIPMIS platform.
Funds in the Treasury single account have risen to 2.3 trillion naira, with 98% of ministries, departments and agencies complying with the TSA directive. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has put the value of its development finance intervention across the country at about 1.36 trillion naira. CBN Governor Mr. Godwin Emefiele, who disclosed these, emphasized that the Central Bank's determination to improve lending to the real sector of the economy would stimulate employment generation and boost accretion to foreign reserves through non-oil exports. A breakdown of the disbursement showed 300 billion had been set aside for Real Sector Support Facility (RSSF). 220 billion had also been disbursed to Micro, Small and Medium Scale Enterprises Development Fund. The Nigerian Incentive-Based Risk Sharing System for Agricultural Lending (NASL) got 75 billion naira. And the Nigerian Electricity Market Stabilization Fund received 213 billion naira. Similarly, the Nigerian Export-Import Bank Nexim support at the 50 billion for the Export Financing and Restructuring Facility and the Non-Oil Export Stimulation Facility that received 300 billion naira. Speaking at the opening of the ongoing 21st Seminar for Finance Correspondents and Business Editors, themed CBN Real Sector Financing, a catalyst for economic growth and development in Ibadan, Oyo State, he said the move became necessary given the real sector represented engine of every economy and serving a source of wealth creation and income generation to the productive population. And that's the package on the business news this hour. It's nice talking business with you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Many thanks, Seun Ogunloyin, with the business package there. Up next is our newspaper review. Of course, what's making the front pages?
Bayo Atoyobe is right there with us for today's edition of Newspaper Review. Bayo, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's begin with stories on the economy. And you have headlines that come onto the front pages of the papers that we have today. For Vanguard is the lead story. And the headline is Budget 2016 full of errors and can't be passed. That's attributed to the National Assembly. Budget 2016 full of errors, can't be passed, National Assembly. And there are three riders to that headline. Senate rejects 200 million naira allocation to petroleum industry, to Petroleum Ministry on PIB, and turns down 200 million naira for gas master plan review. And Buhari should withdraw and represent budget, and that's attributed to Fayose, the governor of Ekiti State. It's also a front page story for the Punch newspaper, this time above its name flag. One of three headlines above the name flag. It says budget, that's the kicker. Federal government admits errors and threatens sanctions against perpetrators. Details of that story can, of course, be found on page 12. And for the Nation newspaper, it's also there on the front page, but just below, just beside the second set of photographs, the second half of the lower half of the front page. Lawmakers put off budget passage indefinitely. That's the story there. You can see it on the right-hand side. Lawmakers put off budget passage indefinitely.
All right. right, so still on the budget, I have on the front page of the Daily Trust, budget can't be ready. February 25 is credited to the National Assembly. Of course, the deadline is set to pass the 2016 budget is no longer feasible. That is what is coming to us on the front page of the Daily Trust. The Nigerian pilot read it this way: hardship looms as National Assembly suspends passage of 2016 budget indefinitely. The story, of course, is on the 4th page of the Nigerian pilots. That's it with the budget this morning.
I'm alarmed about that headline that says the suspend budget passage indefinitely. No. What the National Assembly said was that the 25th February deadline is no longer feasible. In fact, the Senate Committee Chairman for Appropriation, Senator Danjuma Goji, and his House of Representative counterpart, Jibril Abdulmuminid, said that there were too many errors that makes the passage now, by that date, impossible. We want to remove all ambiguities and we want to remove all paddings. And there are bloated overheads as well as bloated personal costs, and the budget defense will be very difficult. So what they are anticipating is that it will take a longer time than the 25th of this month that was originally given as a deadline. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Budget Planning that also says that the 2016 budget is well structured and targeted to revive the economy. They have admitted that the errors observed were unexpected in the change over from line budgeting to zero-based budgeting. The Director of Information for the Ministry says that the personnel of the Ministry of the Department and other agencies were grappling with the mistakes, and they were trying to master the transition from line budgeting to zero-based budgeting.
All right, still on economic matter, there's a story. I
was just wondering, what's the difference between the figures that have been inserted now? And I mean, because there was a report over the weekend about the budget mafia.
Yes, there was concern about budget mafia, which implies that there's probably a deliberate attempt to bloat the figures. In fact, there was that example you read about the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, where 200 million were slated just for presenting the petroleum industry bill to the National Assembly. And the senator said the bill is already before the National Assembly. You don't need 200 million to present the bill before the National Assembly. Right. So those are some of the...
Look at some other information still on the economy. Just below the photograph you have there on the front page of the Nigerian pilot, you have IC's recruitment agent nabbed, but just below that you have fraudsters planning to steal 4.5 billion naira from TSA arrested. That's on the front page of the Nigerian pilots.
Yeah, that story, that is the one you just read now, is the lead story for the Nation newspaper. In the middle of the page, it says, DSS arrests 3 over bid to rob TSA of 4.5 billion naira cash. 2 riders to that, Accountant General's office worker held, and then the other one, ISIS, undergraduate ISIS recruiter arrested. So DSS arrests 3 over bid to rob TSA of 4.5 billion naira cash. Bayo, of course, they just like...
Well, you know that just only last week, I think it was, no, in fact, it was early this week that we were reporting that the TSA had generated 2.3 trillion from funds recovered from ministries, departments, and agencies. So these smart allies, led by one Sunday Oku, were trying to take 4.5 billion out of it. It was in collaboration with the 3 others, and including one program analyst from the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. Talking about DSS also, they said a 400-level student of the Federal University of Technology, Mina, his name is Abdusalami Enesi Yunusa, has been arrested. He was involved in indoctrinating and recruiting persons for ISIS. In fact, he was apprehended when he was heading about 5 families that were to go through Libya to go and join ISIS. Also, 5 other persons have also been intercepted in Daura. This is another terrorist cell in Daura. They were allegedly planning to attack places in Kano and Katsina. Their name is Ansaru Group, and they are alleged to be also coordinated by a gentleman named Ibrahim Mohammed Daura and Zaharuddin Salisu.
Okay.
Well, Ansaru has always been mentioned along with Boko Haram, if you recall. Yes, years ago, although of course by the time Boko Haram stepped up its atrocities, Ansaru tended to have faded. Yes.
And now gradually it has crossed across from Yobe now is surfacing in
I thought we were
We'll take on the aspect of politics.
Yeah, before
Kogi.
just before we skip over to that, I was just wondering, the headline, I thought Bayo was going to comment on that, because DSS arrests 3 over bid to rob TSA of 4.5 billion naira cash. I think the story in detail, that's from The Nation, talks about an attempt to actually hack into the Accountant General's website in order to get the money, and that's not a robbery, by the way.
Yes, I mentioned that it was involved, allegedly involving the program analyst of the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. I mentioned that earlier. The other 2 stories of keen interest, of course, first is Kogi State.
Simon Achuba has been sworn in.
Yes, Achuba has been sworn in.
Kogi Deputy Governor.
And in fact, Achuba before now had been the 2-term member of the Kogi State House of Assembly. He was 1-time Deputy Speaker. So when his case came up there, he was asked to take a bow and go. However, the curious thing was that at the government house, journalists were barred from being part of the inauguration. Already, Mr. James Faleke has also reacted. He says that, well, all these actions are all illegal, and even the governor's time is temporary because all are illegal and won't stand the test of time. Also, there is the concern raised in River State by...
Yeah, that headline is, Bayo, that headline
yes.
I'm just going to speak to now. It's also in The Nation, the front page of The Nation. Peter side, that's the kicker. Wicked knew about Supreme Court judgment. It has a writer, APC wants to create confusion, says governor. That's right.
Well, it's an allegation that the governor of River State, Nyesom Wike, had met at MBC in Owerri with one of the judges, and at another point in time at Owerri with another judge, and others in Dubai and Saudi Arabia. And it was as a result of that these justices favored their ruling for Governor Wike. He also had alleged that Wike at a function had boasted that when it comes to the judiciary, his advisor is Dr. Peter Odili and the wife. And on the other hand, the Commissioner for Information for River State has responded. He is Dr. Austin Tam George, and he says that Peace Heights has not recovered from the verdict of the Supreme Court. Hence, his strange attempts to taint the reputation of the judiciary. Well, there is implication for all that, undermining the integrity of a public institution like the judiciary. If the judiciary is the final arbiter for the common man, I don't think it is good to cast the judiciary in that light. You will recall that at the lower courts, when the judgment favors them, they say judiciary is...
All right, Bayo, well, we'd like to thank you, but before we go, you remember the story, the Alake of Egbaland, and then the reply by the Esogma of Benin in Vanguard yesterday. Today, there's also another rejoinder, this time from Alake. It says, Yoruba Obas, that's on the front page of Vanguard. I stand by my ranking, says Alake. Details of that on page 11. But he wasn't the Alake who was speaking this time. It was one of his aides, and he said he would provide the facts later.
In fact, the Oni has said he's not interested in all this supremacy.
Right.
All he's concerned about is unity of the Yoruba race.
Bayo Toyobi, we'd like to thank you for being with us on the program today. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. It's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll take on our principal item for conversation, how to empower the Nigerian youth.
We have always lived together as brothers and sisters. Though we speak different languages and celebrate different cultures, we were still one Nigeria. There was no bombing, there was no kidnapping, and our children were not cultists. Now, we suspect one another as there are spreads of cultism, bombing, and kidnapping. How long shall this go on? Terrorism is alien, kidnapping is criminal, cultism is barbaric. Nigeria is a blessed country. Supports the Nigeria police and the fight against terrorism, kidnapping and cultism. Always inform the police of any incident around you. Say something when you suspect something.
Remember, we all have a stake in building a crime-free Nigeria of our dream.
This message is from the Nigeria Police Force.
Goodness is getting better. Introducing new exciting packs from Hollandia Yogurt. Goodness just got better. Hollandia Yogurt. It's all good.
From the House of Chi.
Goodness is getting better. Introducing new exciting packs from Hollandia Yogurt. Goodness just got better. Hollandia Yogurt. It's all good.
From the House of Chi.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. The general expectation is that a rising youth population relative to other age groups stimulates economic development. However, this is not automatic. In fact, rather than being a facilitator of economic development, a youth bulge in Nigeria could present major problems if key challenges facing young people are not addressed. In this background report, correspondent Seun Ogunloyi takes a look at the Nigerian youth.
An increase in the youth population of Nigeria without adequate socio-economic investment to harness their potential could result in a demographic disaster rather than demographic dividend. If the current socio-economic challenges of poverty, unemployment, access to educational and economic opportunities, and corruption in Nigeria are not addressed, it could undermine stability and sustainable economic development in the country. Economic demographers have long foreseen an increase in the youth population of many developing countries, including Nigeria. Projections by the Population Reference Bureau confirm that Africa will have the highest share of young people in the world by the year 2050, and current trends put Nigeria in a lead position in this regard. The challenges currently facing young people in Nigeria need to be addressed for the youth bulge to yield economic dividends. Firstly, the poverty level in Nigeria has increased substantially from 28.1% in 1980 to about 70% in the year 2013. The report, according to statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics of Nigeria, says this is partly as a result of high unemployment, lack of basic infrastructure, especially electricity, poor economic policies, and corruption. In recent years, various governments have devised strategies to tackle the challenges and attain the benefit of Nigeria's impending youth bulge, which presents a great opportunity for economic development. To achieve this, however, requires appropriate policies that address the current challenges facing the country's young people. Observers say if Nigeria is to capitalize on its impending youth bulge, then urgent action needs to be taken in order to ensure that this golden opportunity does not become demographic disaster. Governments must begin to realize that national development is a collective issue that requires all hands on deck, where the youth has the springboard.
All right, thank you very much there for that background report. Of course, we are being joined now in the studios by the Minister of Youth and Sports, Honorable Solomon Dalong. It's our pleasure, Honorable Minister, to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Nigerians, good morning.
Okay, well, of course, you can see him in his familiar beret and fatigue. Of course, he has an explanation for that. I thought it was going to be khaki color, but this looks closer to a Boy Scout color or something of that nature. Honorable Minister, well, again, it's our delight, to have you join us on the program. And by the way, we'll be joined also by other guests in the course of the conversation, and viewers can send in their reactions through the Twitter handle that you have on the screen there at NTA GMA. Let's begin straight away. Nigeria does not appear to have a shortage of intentions and programs to empower the youth. And yet, the evidence that stares all of us in the face is that the population of the Nigerian youth is growing, and the frustration also is increasing. The programs would appear not to have delivered on their intentions. What is it that we're going to be doing differently now under your watch?
Well, a popular Marxist scholar argued that for you to be able to predict precisely a phenomenon, you have to also review the evolution of that phenomenon so that you can assert how it will be in future. Meaning that you don't start looking at a problem from today, but you need to look back to see where it started why it is today, and you can then be able to address it tomorrow. Of course, if you go into almost all documents, whether government, non-governmental organizations, communities, there are so many laudable intentions of addressing youth question, especially unemployment, empowerment programs. They've been there. But still over the years, nothing seems to have actually been done to mitigate. And day in, day out, we have increasing profile of youth agitation, youth expression, youth determination, and youth trying to assert their rights. Basically, I think there is the absence of the political will to address the question of youth nationally. The policies are there, but the political will has not been there. Because if the political will has been there, then youth engagement could have taken a different dimension, and we would have done much to be also able to absorb the numerous agitations confronting us today as a nation. Secondly, there is one aspect which has not been given attention: the absence of a political space for the youth, which has also gone to destroyed hope. And without hope, no any investment can make any good yield. So, because the youths have been frustrated, they have not been, there's no space for them. And they read very interesting history of leaders in this country. When I was a young man, I met a man who was 32 years as head of state in Nigeria. And I met people at 26 who were commissioners and ministers in this country. And then today, at 26, you don't know where you rightly belong. Even though the National Youth Policy defines youth as 18 to 35, the practical definition of youth, even in terms of attitude, of engagement of youth and the creation of a political space, had not recognized this. So whatever investment you put in youth development goes to nothing, because where are they heading to? They have no hope. If at 61, somebody is still a national youth leader of a political party, and somebody like me who is 51, by that, I'm not qualified yet to be a youth. I need some 10 years to be a youth. Then if we keep graduating with the definition of youth and elders, certainly we are going to overstretch the frustrated generation, and the outbursts may be the things we are living with now. So I think I will summarize this as the absence of the political will.
Okay, Honorable Minister, sir, if you say the absence of a political will, you've used so many key words here: the despondence in the youth, not having the political will. On whose side should we begin to lay this blame? Because you just mentioned, once upon a time in this country, 26-year-old, 32, took up leadership position. What is it in the average Nigerian youth today that is not given that push to actually take up the right leadership position? And how did you find yourself here?
That has always been the 1 million question every sensible person has been asking. Where did we miss our steps? To me, I think along the line of our development as a nation, the youth question was not given the desirable attention, and it was reduced to mere lip service. And what was obtainable largely to now is the creation of youth status, where once there is engagement of the youth, you have a particular group of people that are mobilized to represent the youth. And indeed, they are not a reflection of the entire youth because they still belong to the same class of leadership. So there is a creation, group classification, stratification. The leaders are in power. They have also their type of youth, and that is what is superimposed on the youth. So the blame can basically be placed at the doorstep of government. Government has, in the past, not given due attention to the question of youth. And today, we are now confronted with a monstrous situation where they are now in a large number that have not been attended to. And that has taken us to the issue of youth empowerment schemes and addressing unemployment. If there were employment going on and empowerment programs meticulously implemented by government, of course, this large army of unemployed youth would have not been there. So government must take responsibility. Government in the past had not been able to take the youth question seriously.
I was just wondering, Blessing, just before we move on, because the minister talked about the Marxist imperative of having to look back historically to find out the causative factors of particular social phenomena. I don't know to what extent we can actually begin to blame the political leadership or go ahead with the examples you cited, that persons who were 26 years old as commissioners like, the late Ken Saro-Wiwa, or the then governor of Rivers State, Aphrodite Spieth, and General Yakubu Gowon, who became head of state at the age of 32. There were circumstances that warranted all of those things. The military rule, for instance, or, the founding fathers of the nation immediately after independence. The country has become much more sophisticated, and therefore, the age requirement has also been elevated. You can find that in the constitutional provision. So that's one point I just wanted to highlight. If you want to trash that, you can. But the next point I would like you to address, Minister, is as follows. Yes, we are familiar with all that is going on. My colleague Blessing has also talked about the despondency, and we see that all around. What is it that we can expect from you now, bearing in mind your research into what your predecessors had done, what worked and what didn't work, and then where you want to take the agenda to going forward?
Well, starting from the issue of whether the political class has some fair share of the blame, indeed they have. They are culpable. Because if the political leadership had followed the footprints of our founding fathers, where youth education was on the front burner, most of them were trained outside the country with fantastic scholarship. They were also given responsibilities. In some instances, they were even taken in on job and in training, and proceeded to schools and reached to even postgraduate level. That initiative was quite encouraging. That robust initiative was what reinforced who they are today. So abandoning it was one of the problems. Then back to what do we have now in our kitty differently than how do we intend to look at this issue in order to create better conditions for the youth. For me, I think, or for us in the ministry today, the question of creating a political space for the youth is also very, very important in youth engagement. It is beyond interaction. Creating platforms where the youth interact with leaders at levels is out of the question. We are thinking of famous raising a national youth development fund. Now, this National Youth Development Fund will be a fund where we raise a lot of investment for youth development in all space. This will have to deal with education, deal with the issue of political power, to deal with empowerment, because it's not every young man that is interested in vocational training. There are young people that want to be leaders, and they have worked hard for it to be so. But because there is no political space, like I keep arguing, they are even not qualified to become councillors in their ward, however good they are, because they don't have the good connection with the political parentage, which will enable them access power. Then we are also going to emphasize value reorientation. The defeatist tendencies now imposed on the young people that there is no hope and they cannot be anything is something we are going to wage a serious sanitization campaign to build hope in them that they can be anything in this country if they work very hard for it. Because those who are what they are today do not even go to get it. We are also going to, from our initiative, sensitize the youth to also develop more interest in acquiring education. If they are educated, they will know their rights. They will also be able to access power. They will be able to participate in any business against the background of abandoning education to go for skill acquisition and ending up where ordinarily they do not even aspire to be. That is part of what we want to approach. For the fund, we have started consulting with the development and donor agencies where we want to mobilize and engage even the country and our corporate investors to pool their resources together and let us tackle the youth question. And if we are able to realize this fund should be put at the management of reputable Nigerians and taken off government, where the question of political willpower will be needed, and where politics is involved, you have poor implementation of the policy. So we believe that unless and until there is an entity that is responsible for funding and management of the youth question in Nigeria, we will still be repeating the same mistakes.
Okay. Honorable Minister, well, I appreciate this laudable direction that the government is trying to look into. But of course, we know that most developed nations, of course, attained some of their economic development through encouragement of their youth in the different programs. And these days, there is the outlook for job creators, not job seekers. And we want to see the direction this administration is trying to go. Yes, you've just talked about the political space which you're trying to create for the youth or the young ones that are coming. Beyond the funds being sought from outside, what exactly will the government, the administration be doing to actually encourage this innovation, this creation? Some of the young people have actually started, but seeking the enabling environment is still a worrisome situation for most Nigerian youth. In what direction is the country going to be looking into as beyond going outside? How do we begin to leverage on that which we have inside?
At the level of government and even looking at this year's budget, a lot has been voted for social development, and much of it will go to the youth question, trying to provide funds and the enabling economic environment for robust engagement of youth in skill acquisition, entrepreneurship, small and medium-scale enterprises. This is indeed the highest, from my inquiry, budgetary allocation considered in this country of ours for youth development. So I think at our own end, as government, in this year's budget, much is provided for to address the youth question, because Mr. President, throughout his campaign, made promises to the youth to address the question of youth unemployment. And as a person, he has so much passion for the youth question, because you are raising any discussion with him, the first paragraph, the second one, he would express his concern about the youth question. In one of the engagements, he said, well, if we do not provide education for our youth, then we are preparing them for a very dangerous future. So on our side, not just looking out, but we have demonstrated our commitment by appropriating so much. And if that has the blessing of the National Assembly, there is much that is going to be happening relating to these youth issues that we raise. But beyond what we are doing, we are looking at a long-term and strategic plan for youth development.
Minister, we'll come back to that, you know, some of the points, the specifics of what you intend to do, so that the viewers out there who have an interest in this area can then get a bearing from what you are saying. As we indicated earlier, the tweets are already coming in, and would like to take some of them in the meantime so that the minister himself, you know, can get an idea of how viewers are responding to what is being said. Ogo Uwaje writes, I think the youth are also to blame. There's too much interest in entertainment and too little innovation and creative thinking.
Well, for Noye Umahi, she says, entrepreneurship is very key in empowering the youth. I've noticed their zeal and ideas, but no entrepreneurial training to guide them.
And then we have one again from FYID International. It says, to start with, what is the amount of funds allocated to youth development in the 2016 budget? I think we just spoke to that a moment ago, you know, with regard to the quantum of the funds. But 2 points that have been raised here by the tweets that have come in. One that said, look, the youths appear to be too keen on entertainment rather than innovation and creative thinking, as well as, of course, the absence of entrepreneurial training in order to release them into the world of business and be job creators rather than job seekers.
Well, I concede to that line of thinking, but the question is why? You have to trace that back to what I said earlier on. Most Nigerian youths take to entertainment because they are frustrated. So they think, I mean, getting into it is expression of the state of hopelessness. They get into it. Not so many of them that go into the entertainment industry goes into it because they want it to be. I give you an example of a lady I went to school with. She read law, but along the line, she was so frustrated, and she ended up becoming a musician. So these are some of the instances we are talking about it. Of course, the attitude of the youth today as it is, that is why we are talking about value reorientation. The youth must be reorientated to appreciate the values of Nigeria as a nation and leadership as well. If this is not done, whatever level of investment that is sunk into it goes to nothing. A young man was given 800,000 naira facility. And he went and bought a car of 500,000 and used 80,000 to buy a phone and graduated from being an acting big man. That young man has something wrong with him. He needs some form of reorientation. So this is the situation I'm saying, that the youth had gotten to some level of frustration, that people have lost hope in life, and they think nothing good can come out of it. As to how much do we have in this year's budget, like I said earlier on, we have as much as, I think, over 200 billion warehouse in the office of the vice president to be able to handle the issue of youth development programs in synergy with the Ministry of Youth and Sport Development and other relevant ministries that are involved also in youth development. So there is that provision in the budget.
Okay, Honorable Minister, before we'll take a break to let you have some breather and get some of our messages on, we'll quickly take on these other tweets that came in, but not mind the fact that some people actually find expression in this music and other cultural form, not necessarily because of frustration, because I know some of them will have been reacting in different ways now. But your win program of the previous administration was actionable. This is coming from Chimaobi Walter. But for lack of continuity of governance in Nigeria, maybe these are some of the reaction from people.
Yeah, we have another one from Ibrahim Tudo. He writes, due to long years of neglect, some youth have been consumed by drugs, restiveness, cultism, and crime. We need urgent salvation.
For Ugo YJ again, he says, it will be foolhardy to bestow leadership responsibility on someone who is more interested, well, in parentheses, yeah, baby mamas than solving problem.
What does baby mamas mean?
Know.
I don't know what that means. That's the slang of the youth.
Slang, exactly.
I believe. Well, the two key points here again, Honourable Minister, we have been told now we have to go on a short break, but when we come back from the break, the tweet here talks about the You Win program. In other words, what went on before and what are you seeking to build on? Are you starting afresh? All right, that will be after the break on Good Morning Nigeria.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Rise up. Rise up.
Feel the tasty, refreshing goodness of Chi iced tea.
Return to life. Rise up. Feel active alive.
Chi iced tea, made from premium natural tea leaves.
Rise up.
With delicious fruity flavors.
Rise up.
Chi iced tea.
To the tea side of life.
Drink positive. Come over to the tea side of life.
All right, thank you. If you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As you can see on the screen, we are this morning discussing youth empowerment, and we have with us the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports, Mr. Solomon Dalong. Of course, has been speaking to us for the past 20 minutes or so before we went on a short break. We're going to ask him a question on, continuity. There was a tweet that came in from Chimaobi Walter saying that the You Win program of the previous administration was actionable, was successful, but for lack of continuity of governance in Nigeria. So the question, Honorable Minister, once again, before we introduce other guests who are joining in this conversation, both here in the Abuja studios and from our Lagos Network Center. Honorable Minister, what is it that you are continuing from the past?
Continuity, yes. That is the best we can sustain youth development. But I think I need to state clearly here that one of the problems of youth development in Nigeria is developing youth in silos. You have so many things going on in so many places, and there is no synergy. The You Win program was not housed even in the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development. And as it is today, we have no even record of performance because it wasn't monitored and evaluated even by the ministry, and there was no synergy between the Ministry of Youth and the ministry that housed the program.
That Ministry of Finance.
Yes. So continuity will now be from the perspective of the ministry that housed it, unless it is now relocated to us in the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development. But like I said, you see, the problem we are having is all these activities going on in different MDS must be housed in one place, which is the Ministry of Youth and Sport Development. The targets are the youth. The issues are those ones that are being handled. So if it is youth-related issues, it's a thematic issue under the Ministry of Youth, under our mandate, because we have 18 thematic issues. And these issues that are being addressed in silos form part of these 18 thematic issues. We have the technical know-how concerning youth development. So all that needs to be done is, let's have a synergy. You identify the issue, provide funds, provide the technical requirement based on what you intend to achieve, but engage us in the Ministry of Youth so that we can be able to monitor, we can be able to evaluate, we can also be able to assess, and then we'll build a data of youth development. But as it is today, it is only what has been happening in our ministry that we can account for. The UN, Shopee, all those programs were housed elsewhere, and the ministry was a stranger. So we cannot talk about continuity because you don't talk about anything that is not within your control.
So with such laudable programs will still be estranged if your ministry is not moving in that direction to actually have the synergy with other ministries that are also in some of these programs? Well,
I think under the new dispensation where the Office of the Vice President is coordinating, that is an inter-ministerial council involving all the ministries that are involved in youth development issues. So it is going to be powered collectively and together. But at that level too, there will be need to also look at some of these laudable initiatives that had gone on in the past and try to adapt some of the positive aspect of it, because it's not everything about you win that was not good. It was indeed a very laudable initiative that had also transformed the lives of so many young people. There are today so many successful stories of young people from it. But I think the question was the technical attitude to the management of the program, which we must address and see what we can pick out of it.
All right, Honorable Minister, thank you so much. We're being joined this time around by other guests to actually take a look at youth empowerment, even as it concerns what your ministry is doing, amongst other things that could be done to champion the cause of the young people. Joining us at this time is Mr. Obinna Urakwa, who is a youth empowerment public affairs analyst. Would like to welcome him back to the program. I think he was here once when we were discussing SMEs and how to develop the young people's attitude. Mr. Obinna Urakwa, we welcome you to the program.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay, also joining us in the studio here in Abuja is a former NYSC director, Mr. John Aboere. We'd like to welcome you to the program.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then we have from our Lagos Network Center this time, we've been joined by Dr. Angel Adelaja. Dr. Adelaja is a farmer and entrepreneur. It's our pleasure to have you. You were with us in the studio sometime early last year. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
That from my observation that perhaps you're the only youth in our midst today for this conversation. So maybe we, we begin with you before the. I'm sure you guys refer to us as elders before they begin to comment on this. But let's put it this way: I mean, you're a farmer, and then you're an entrepreneur. You have the vibes. You feel that. Let me use the slang. You feel the vibes of the younger generation. What is it that the younger persons would like to see done in order to get them going?
Thank you for having me. First of all, I'd like to say that when you're having a discussion on youth, you must engage the youth. You must get the pulse of what they want. You must bring them to the table. Because at some point, if you don't bring them to the table, they're going to take the table by force, or they're going to decide they don't, and they'll create their own table. And then they'll exclude the older generation when the older generation needs them the most. For me, I've seen that what youth are really looking for is they're not looking for handouts, but they're looking for an enabling environment. We're looking for single-digit loans to be able to compete with our peers and competitors in other countries, when you look at a youth in Nigeria and you look at a youth in either Indonesia or Malaysia or China or the United States, you see that when we have to compete with 20-something% interest rates on loans when we're trying to boost businesses, it's very, very difficult. We're looking for even loans for education. We're not saying give us all scholarships, but for those people who are interested in furthering their education, a loan means that they must do well in school, and then they need to pay that back. And it also means that they'd be interested in coming back and building their country. We're looking at making sure that even in terms of foreign investment and even domestic investment, Nigeria has made an enabling environment. So for those of us who don't want to be entrepreneurs, we have businesses to work at. We have opportunities to get jobs with companies. We're looking for education. I mean, we want quality education. We want experiential learning. We want to be trained by the best. We don't want people who couldn't do that go to teach. You know, they say those that can't do, teach. We want people who have done and have been successful and come back to teach us. We don't want teachers that cannot do their multiplication table, their times tables, to come and teach us multiplication. We don't want teachers who can't speak proper English to come and teach us English. We want qualified people to give us the best learning. Our parents and our grandparents, and even those old enough to be our great-grandparents, got amazing educations. They went abroad, they came back to Nigeria, they had opportunities. Many of us who have even gotten scholarships from Nigeria are stuck abroad because of political lack of continuity. I think the whole issue here is lack of succession planning, lack of continuity, and just an overall lack of interest in the youth. So we're mimicking our mentors. Unfortunately, for some of us, our mentors are politicians and even business people who focus more on lavish lifestyles and spending money and not focusing on who's going to come up after them, who's going to continue their business, who's going to continue their political agenda, who's going to continue to grow the country. The reality is that at some point, those who age will need people to take care of them. And we're not going to look back and say, you helped me, I need to take care of you, if you're not doing what you need to do to take care of the youth. I think other things that we think about is youth are looking for healthcare. Youth are looking for means to become financially literate. We're looking for opportunities to learn about entrepreneurship. We're looking for, and I think this all goes down to education too. When you give people quality education, it's not just about mathematics and science and English, but it's also about financial literacy in schools. It's about teaching from a young age about the importance of working hard, about the importance of even having jobs. It's about finding ways for people who want to learn. Like, there are a lot of youth who missed it. There are a lot of youth who have been left in the gap, and so they may not have gotten a quality education, but now they're at an age where they need to work, but they don't have the educational skills. There's a big gap in the skills. We have about 11 million youth who are unemployed, but we have so many companies saying that they're looking for qualified workers. So I think for those, being able to have either night schooling, evening classes, online classes, where they can go back to school. I think even the opportunity to have access to internet, government focusing on giving youth access to the internet for education, or giving them access to learning centers so that they can continue their education at affordable rates, or even free. Free education is a big thing that we're looking for, and we're just looking for the so-called elders to just stop boxing us. We're on a spectrum. Youth are so different. There's some who are into entertainment. There's some who are into working. There's some who are into being their own bosses. There's some who are, we're just an array of diverse individuals. And I think that being able to, let's say for politicians, go into the constituency and find out what people need. It makes no sense that in the budget they've done constituency projects, but for youth, let's say, but they don't actually know what we need. Is it kekes that we want? Is it sewing machines that we want? Or is it something else? I think talk to us. I'm also a global shaper of the Abuja hub. The Global Shaper community is part of the World Economic Forum, and we're the youngest platform on that forum. And what we do is we try to connect youth to leaders. We usually have a Meet the Leader session where we've had amazing people like Ashish Thakkar, Africa's youngest billionaire. We've had Omobola Johnson. And these are people who are interested in mentoring youth, and they come and talk to us. And then we understand. We even just had the Minister of Environment, and she talked to us about her experience. And she showed us that she was a CEO and she had that position under.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Angel Adelaja, for your opening salvo. Really, you're so filled with passion on what you think is a disconnection between government and the young people in this nation. Of course, we earlier introduced Mr. John Abuere, former director NYC. Of course, at a point in your time in service, you had to mix with this crop of young people already fresh from school, and there is a direction with which NYC tends to actually champion what is expected of them during the service year. But this disconnection has posited from Dr. Angel this morning. What exactly are we missing out in directing the energy, the strength, and everything that is represented in the young person?
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Abuere.
Dr. Abuere.
Yeah, and you are right. I have been a director of the National Youth Service Corps. Before I return to your direct question, there is the need to make some conceptual clarification, which seems to me to becloud the whole question of empowerment in the country. Empowerment is not just a one-thing affair. It is multidimensional, and it involves the family, involves the institution, it involves the government, the state, etc. But it must have a goal, and it is the goal that will inform what the contents of that empowerment program should be. What we've seen in Nigeria is that we just take it for example, it's not narrowly conceived, usually in terms of economics. But you begin, I was happy when the minister mentioned value. You begin to wonder what kind of empowerment you have when the boy or the youth from the beginning does not know you have to respect the father, you have to tell the truth, you have to have good character, you have to subscribe to nation building, etc. You begin to wonder if the school doesn't tell you that it's good for you to, that life is not about paid employment, that you still can make it if you are self-employed. You begin to wonder what will happen if the society itself hasn't got the infrastructure that would empower the youth to perform. In other words, youth empowerment is conducted at two levels. At the individual, half of the African youths are not empowered. They cannot participate effectively in the development process. The meaning of this is this. We need to really sit down and say, okay, what do we do to touch the soul, that is the individual, the soul of the Nigerian youth, so that it becomes responsible on its own, so that it becomes patriotic on its own, so that it will shun, crimes, such that he will see value in self-employment. These are not being done. You now find the Ministry of Youth was created after 2000. And before that time, there was no coordination. In my little book there, we struggle, we suggested that the Ministry of Youth must be, if we are serious with youth empowerment. But we now see, we have so many youth programs that don't even have any relationship with the ministry. But that is not. What I want to say is this. The National Youth Service Corps recognized many, many years ago that there is a need for you to be properly empowered. As a matter of fact, the NYC itself on its own is a successful youth empowerment program. No matter how you look at it, the purpose is to make the Nigerian youth patriotic. It is doing that. But we realized when we were there that, look, patriotism without job, without employment, will not serve the purpose. So we introduce, the job placement activities. But it is beset with many, many problems. One, the money to really make it function, the loans to give out. Two, the training facilities itself may not be there. You may just give 1 month training to somebody in the school, during the orientation. What after the orientation? Three, the value conflict. Here you are, a director, saying that there is something good in taking to self-employment. Here, this boy you are talking to is a graduate, is very, is sharp in the head, and he knows that the minister is not doing farming, and you are telling him that that is where it will be. He knows that the people that gain respect in the society are not farmers. You know that way that value conflict makes it impossible for evil people to take you serious. But again, there is this serious problem of certification. You know, Asian world had seen it, that they call it the diploma disease. In my book here, I call it eduflation, a situation where the emphasis is placed on certificates. And when you get it, instead of you to try to use your hand, you start looking for employment, because that is what the value says. Yesterday, I think I was watching, I think it was Kingsley that asked the question, said, okay, the man from Niger Delta Ministry, well, how many people have you been able to place back? And I was laughing when I was looking, because the man tried to tell you he has done 33 that. Look, the issue is this. These economic approach of setting up centers have never really worked. Why? Because of the strength of the values that inform them. They don't work because, one, if you look at Tanzania example, the village polytechnics, after it, you find that people who started looking for paid employment. So what are we doing? In the National Youth Service Corps, that is the question you ask, there is a job placement department that tries to orient, that tries to enhance the skills for people to be employed, for people to be self-employed. But I am saying that for us to really talk about youth empowerment, there are more to be done within the environment. And these environmental factors must be taken care of. And if the time permits, I will be able to.
All right. Dr. Abuere, I mean, the key point, one of the key points that you have made is that in discussing empowerment, we must see it beyond the realm of economics. Yes. All right. We indicated earlier we have Mr. Obin Ruakba, of course, who's been listening to the other guests as they've been responding to our questions. But the tweets have also been coming in. And at this time, before we come back to Mr. Ruakba for his first take, let's take the tweets. Emmanuel Michael writes, I'm tired of waiting to be leader of tomorrow. I want to be a leader today. Old people enjoyed yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Well, for Johnson Ibian, he said, until we address the question, who is a youth in Nigeria? Effort will always be undermined by the same people.
And Adebayo Musa writes, let this government encourage honesty, trust, and hard work among the youth. This will boost the productive potentials of our young people.
And for Emmanuel Abulime, he says, what plans do you have for NYC scheme? Minister should please answer the question.
And Emmanuel Augustine, we have a number of Emmanuels here today. Emmanuel Michael, Emmanuel Abulime. Now Emmanuel Augustine writes, the Nigerian youth still remain the most dedicated and hardworking compared to our counterparts in other countries.
And here's another Emmanuel Adebayo. Levies and taxes on small-scale businesses are killing the idea of self-employment. Government needs to review levies and tax system for small business.
All right, so we take some more tweets in the course of the conversation now to Mr. Obin Ruakba. Mr. Ruakba, you've listened to the other guests, particularly one of the key points just made now, seeing empowerment beyond the realm of economics. Plus, of course, the points articulated by Dr. Adelaja at our Lagos Network Center, mentorship, the challenge of mentorship, which will also involve part of what Dr. Abuere has said, plus the plans outlined already by the minister. What's your take on how we can begin to ramp up the empowerment of our young people?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I'll start from the minister himself. I had the privilege of being in his office for a program. And the minister said that it's only in Nigeria that you have a 61-year-old being the youth leader of a political party. The minister himself said that in a normal nation, someone like him should not be a minister of youth. He said he is 51 years old. Now, the United Nations definition of youth is between 18 and 35. I know that in Africa, because of challenges of underdevelopment, a lot of young people do not get paid employment or proper job placement till their late 40s. I'm 44 today. I retired at 36 from paid employment. My dad was a lecturer, my mom a teacher. But I found out that several years after retirement, they got no pension, and it was still my little stipends that I got from all of the things that I did, that I used to bring them to Abuja to do their pension, whatever they do at Pencom and all of
verification.
that. Verification, pardon me. Now, if you listen to Adelaja, you will see how fluent she was. The generation before us has a bit of a challenge, as simple as communication is. If you cannot communicate your idea, you are doomed from ab initio. Now, issue of entrepreneurship starts first and foremost from mindset. Take it back to our culture. What was our culture before? Where did we start? In our culture, a lady had a backyard where she planted ogo, egusi, denkeli, as they call it in Plateau, the potatoes and so on. The mindset then was that you dirtied your hand before you get an oily mouth. You produced something. You looked forward to contributing to the society. But what we got was an academic system downloaded on us by the British and other colonial masters that came into Africa, where we were taught academic knowledge, we were taught administrative knowledge, but the colonial masters left off financial intelligence. And financial intelligence is very close to entrepreneurship. What is the capacity building of the youths that we have in this country? A lot of the young people today have the mindset that this country owes them something. But an American president said, do not think what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Now, we need to convince our young people that in other climes, people contribute to the economy. They need to work out their salvation, permit me to use that expression. They need to start doing a few things for themselves. Someone talked about enabling environment, and I agree totally with that. However, if the society has not given you exactly what you want to get, would you sit down and die and just wait for things to be downloaded on you? I'll give you an example of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg today is not even 35. He got to Oprah Winfrey Show and donated $100 million to charity. Yankum applied for a job in Facebook, was turned down. 2 years after, he came up with an invention that many people are consuming today called WhatsApp. Which brings me to the next point. We have an environment where all we do is consume, consume, consume. I have no problem wearing the suit I'm wearing because my brothers in Aba can do very well in producing it. As I speak to you today, there's a trade fair going on very close to NTA, the third Made in Aba trade fair. But the question you need to ask is, bring it back to what the minister said earlier on.
The NTA Good Morning Nigeria had a program on Made in Nigeria last week. Just
beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you for adding that. Now, the minister said something about synergy among the ministries. The budget of the Ministry of Youth this year is 70,816 million and some fraction attached to it. Let me quickly tell you that, just to align with what the director of NYC was beginning to say, over 60% of this 70 billion you're seeing will go to National Youth Service Corps alone. The DG NYC was defending his budget at the National Assembly, and he told us that there are over 260,000 youths expected at NYC. The question you need to ask is, what quality of training does NYC provide? Is NYC still the same NYC I did in 1991, where I served in Doma local government area in Nasarawa State? And what I used to do was carry yam from Doma to Owerri to my mother. And I went around the hotels in Owerri to find a market for that yam. But what I discovered was that if I took a pickup from Nasarawa State filled with yam, before I got to Owerri, at every checkpoint, and if they took 200 naira from me at every checkpoint, I would not make profit. But I saw it in my hand, and I got involved in entrepreneurship because that mindset was there. I read up books, because if you don't read, you cannot be a leader. I read up a few books, I watched a few videos, and decided to help myself. The mistake I made was I came out from there and was told that it was menial to do farming and so on, and so I started doing CV until reality dawned on me, and I became an insurance agent. Today, I don't work for anybody, and I train other people. Sir, permit me to tell you that what we do in NYSC today, under Said, and the former director will confirm this, called Skill Acquisition and Entrepreneurship Department of the NYSC, we need to investigate what quality of tutelage that goes on there. Leave that alone and go back to the NUC. The NUC came up with a policy asking lecturers, the same lecturers that taught me, where we had a computer center where some lecturers did not know how to boot the laptops and the systems in the computer center. And people read computer science and never booted the system. The same lecturers are the ones that NUC is asking to go teach entrepreneurship. You cannot give what you don't have. If you have never done a business like I'm doing now, before the end of the month, I need to get the salaries of my staff. I need to make sure that I pay my bills. Now the electricity tariff has gone up. I need to make sure that I move from a particular amount to another amount. If you have never done that before, what are you teaching me? As I round off this segment of my contribution, sir, in UK and in other parts of the world, you have lecturers who, when they want to do sabbatical, what do? They do not go to another university for sabbatical. They go to the industry segment of the economy to do their sabbatical. So you go from the University of Lagos and you go to Ebute Metta to a factory and practice economics you've been teaching children in the class. That makes more sense to me.
All right.
And, okay, and for the minister, sir,
Yes.
let me just add this and I'll keep quiet. For the minister, sir, I challenge you, sir, with every sense of respect, to wear the toga. I can see the beret you're wearing and the uniform you're wearing. You're ready for battle. Take up the battle of being the face of everything youth empowerment. Under no circumstances should you win have been under the Ministry of Finance. Under no circumstances should the Community Service Women and Youth Empowerment Program have been under the Ministry of Labour. As I speak to you today, the Ministry of Labour has 500 billion. Why do you have 70 billion for youth?
Okay, excuse me, Mr. Ruakwa, thank you very much there for your passionate reaction to the points. But just to add that maybe, of course, you've been out of the university system for a while. The experience, the feedback that we get is that, yes, real industrialists, business people are now being recruited also as resource persons to speak to students who are in classes for entrepreneurship. So that's ongoing. Perhaps it is to be boosted. Now let's go back to Dr. Adelaja at our Lagos Network Center. Dr. Adelaja, of course, you'll listen again to the elders as they have spoken. I would like you to respond to the point made by Dr. Aboere that we should conceive of youth empowerment beyond the economic imperative. Does this square? How does this square with a young person?
Well, I think that if you heard what I was saying earlier, we don't just want economic development. We don't just want jobs. We don't just want funding. We want our whole environment to change. We want our ecosystem to change. And I think this brings me back to NYSC. I did my NYSC in 2012, which is not so long ago. And I will tell you that if you really want to measure whether NYSC made young Nigerians patriotic, then go and research it. Go and ask them. Have you asked them? I think that we're patriotic because we chose not to go somewhere else. We're still in Nigeria. We chose to continue to do NYSC, even though many people feel it's a waste of a year. People, young Nigerians who want to better themselves, make the most of their NYSC in spite of the system. People register and go all the way to their universities or to their or to Abuja to register for NYSC in spite of the tedious system. It's only recently, after I did mine, that they put NYSC registration online, and the glitches are there. I mean, and even when you're doing NYSC, they want to teach you soap making. For some people, that may be good, but these are graduates. And we want to learn about financial literacy. We want to learn about, we want so much more than just soap making and bead making. So I think, yes, the skills acquisition programs, the skills development programs in NYSC need to be revamped. I think we also look at the fact that the system itself is so bloated, NYSC's system is so bloated, but yet the quality that we're getting from the program is little to none. Most people were worried about whether they're going to get their allowance rather than coming to the programs of NYSC, because for them, some of them, their placement where they chose to get placed or where they were placed was more experiential than the NYSC activities itself. So I think that going back to the concept of data, to have evidence-based decision making, you cannot make decisions for NYSC moving forward if you have not gathered enough information about the effectiveness of NYSC. Have you done surveys of the NYSC youth? Have anonymous surveys so that they can be quite candid with you and tell you, have you done baseline surveys of people before they started NYSC and after they came out of NYSC, and been real with yourself, been honest with yourself, and see what has it done to improve the youth? I think this also goes back to the Ministry of Youth as well. Ministry of Youth, regardless of where funds are for youth, should be able to coordinate and work with other ministries to implement on behalf of the youth. I think we're so concerned about where the money is, but I think we should be focused on how the money is used. I mean, how much of the Ministry of Youth's budget goes to constituency projects or overhead versus programs, and what type of programs? Is the budget flexible enough that the programs can be redeveloped or changed based on the needs of the youth? When last did the Ministry of Youth do surveys in conjunction with National Bureau of Statistics to see what the youth need? The United Nations has a survey called The World We Want, where they go out and they ask youth, what are you looking for in terms of education? What are you looking for in terms of gainful employment? And they ask youth what they want. But if you're not asking us what we want, then how can we be able to be part of the process? I think my young colleague had it right when he said, we're not waiting for governments to give us anything. There's so many of us who are starting our own businesses, who are doing what we need to do to survive. We're doing what we need to do to build our nation. We are patriotic because in spite of everything, in spite of a system that most times shows us that it doesn't care about us, we continue to move forward, we continue to strive ahead. So we're not waiting, we're helping ourselves, we're making our own table. So you don't have to invite us to the table, because by the time we build our own table, the question is, will we then invite you? So I think
All right, thank you very much there, Dr. Adelaja. We're right here. Obina Ruakwa, who's the youth leader in the studio here, is chuckling. Bless him. Let's go to one of the elders, before we return to the youth leader.
All right, yes, of course, Dr. Berry was trying to react to some of the comments.
Yes. Let the impression be corrected. The National Youth Service Corps remains the best and most effective youth program we have today. In fact, not just only in Nigeria, Africa, if not the world. It is established for one thing: the promotion of national unity and national development, the inculcation of certain values that are very critical to national development, such as discipline, such as industry, etc., etc. These are, you move people from place to place. It is designed for a purpose. Nonetheless, the scheme recognizes the fact that youth cannot just be mobilized without giving them something. And that is why it went into this side. But before even side, the scheme went into collaboration, serious one, with the Nigerian Institute of Management. Having said that one, the whole idea is to give what my colleague there said, talk about of financial intelligence, business skills, etc., etc. What one needs to say about the National Youth Service Corps is this: the question of national unity is so fundamental that even the amount being given to it now is so insignificant, so small, that you cannot really make the desired impact. We have to have a nation. And I'm happy that the Nigerian youth, whether he studied abroad or here, has been very, very patriotic, and they come for national service. But you just have to have a nation, build it in the way it should go.
All right. Okay, Dr. Boere, well, I'm sorry, certainly, but I mean, the points that you raised are fantastic. Honorable Minister, we're coming to you presently, but as you very well know, we have a number of tweets. The topic we are discussing is the one that concerns the young people, and they are the ones who can tweet, who can type very fast. I don't know, sometimes when, the tweets have been pouring in in torrents. Let's take some of them, and then we'll come back to the Honorable Minister.
Okay, we'll quickly take on Rahman Latif. He says, youth empowerment. A fresh young graduate seeking for a job is being asked to produce 3 to 5 years work experience. From where, when, and how?
Ali Ahmed writes, a big gap between the sons and daughters of the big men and ordinary Nigerian parents in all aspects of opportunities. Why? Okay,
Rahman Latif again says, going to school is a form of empowerment for youth, but after school, where is the enabling environment to express this knowledge?
All right, and Ibrahim Yusuf Balami writes, parents need to do more in the training of their children towards self-employment. Okay, Honorable Minister, you've listened to the comments of the other guests as well as the messages pouring in from the tweets. What are your reactions? In particular, the suggestion that you have to chase after the silos where a number of these programs are warehoused.
Let me start by corroborating the contribution of our elder here, and maybe try to resist the attempt to remove me from the constituency I belong. I am still a youth until those who are 90 vacate the stage, then I will become an elder. There's no space for me, so how will I become something different? I think the NYSC, as it is today, remains the best for youth engagement and development. They have the entrepreneurship program of the NYSC. I inspected them in Lagos, and I was amazed at what I saw going on there. What I told the DG is that we must invest more and intensify this particular program. We are also thinking of coming up with a policy on NYSC where after the mandatory 1-year service, if a young man wants to continue to acquire skill, he can be retained, but this time with different welfare consideration, and at the end of the training, he is given a check of capital. At this point, we are going to engage investors who are interested in different sectors of the economy. So that is what we are also thinking of doing with the NYSC. So I think the NYSC has been the best. In fact, majority of the lawyers practicing in Jos today went to Jos as corpus. That is national integration. Most of them are even married locally. You cannot quantify that in monetary terms. So the NYSC, I insist, just like the elder has stated, as the best. Then let me try to correct an impression with my sister, because she's trying to exclude me, Dr. Adeleja. It is not, you see, the issue of silo youth development is not about where the money is. But if you are not engaged about a particular thing going on in a ministry, you don't just go and get crushed. A minister cannot leave his office to go and begin to knock the door of another minister and say, I had a dream that you are doing some program here for youth. Let me be part of it. No. We have the technical know-how. We have departments, different departments that are engaged in different aspects of youth development. We have our statistics based on what we know. What we are saying is all youth-related issues should be housed in one place. We will be able to address even the issue of the enabling environment. But when you have them operating in silos, who is doing what and how do you do?
But what is the purpose of the Federal Executive Council, if not to clear some of these bureaucratic silo effects?
Yes, this has existed in the past. We are discussing where we are coming from. But our attitude now is what I am discussing, that we cannot take the issue of youth development in silos. And from the general reaction of the youth, they have corroborated what I actually said. The problem basically with the Nigerian youth is not the issue of entrepreneurship, it's not the issue of skill acquisition, it's not but beyond that, the mindset is one. The mindset of the Nigerian youth is one. Secondly, the doctor has raised the issue of we ascribe a lot of value to certificate. How you get it, whether you were there, whether you bought it, once it is a certificate, it is a certificate. There are so many people holding certificates today that they cannot defend. It is because our value system has been distorted and it looks more at the certificate and not performance, not what you can do. In other developed parts of the world, it is not about certificate. You are invited to an interview. Your ability to present yourself gives you what to do. So unless and until our young people appreciate the fact that the whole issue of developing yourself is not about only the certificate you hold. The certificate is supposed to express who you are. But from there, you should be able to redefine yourself. And I think also that from the voices of the young people today, they have spoken very loud, and we as leaders should listen. The youth are saying that there is no space for them.
Yeah, a point, Blessing, I'm sure you heard it, and I would like the Honorable Minister to respond to this. Dr. Adelaja says we have to listen to the young people. In other words, don't download programs on them. Hear them out. We know that in the past they had a number of summits for the youth here in Abuja and elsewhere, and those papers obviously will be found in your ministry. Are you taking off from the recommendations that you had in the work, or you are going to have your own youth summit, all of which will consume money anyway?
My attitude to even this issue is exactly what Dr. Adeleja has stated. Since I became minister, I have been involved in traveling and engaging youth in local environments. Let us listen to the youth. Let us understand their thinking about how they want to be governed. I agreed in total. The whole concept have been downloading. We have been superimposing our thinking on the youth without engaging them to know how they feel and how they want to be engaged. One of the major thrusts of my approach to youth development is to talk to the youth at even a more local level. Not these tea conferences that are organized in urban centers where the real chunk of youth are even inaccessible. And it is a sort of a Berlin conference arrangement where Africans were discussed in 1885 and there was no single African there to tell them that, look, this map you are using to partition is not correct. We still do the same thing today. We hold conferences and privileged youths are gathered with handbags, and they go there and make wonderful presentation on behalf of the youth, while the youth in the village cannot be connected. Those people are even excluded, so thereby creating another barricade of communication. I want to destroy that. I am not going to relate with the youth through holding conferences. No. Before I even hold conferences, I must try to attempt, and I'm going to hold zonal consultations. I'm going to travel to the zones. People will be drawn from the wards down to the state, and we meet. We sit down with them. It's not going to be a formal decision. It will be an informal interaction. Let me sit with them and see how they feel.
And we hope that in doing that, of course, you realize that there are other tiers of government, states and local governments with collaborative responsibilities. Listen, let's take some of the tweets that have also come in now, and then we'll go over to
Mr. Rapper,
the youth leader in the studio. Mr. Olowo writes, we are not interested in handouts from government. It breeds corruption, and the enabling environment and low interest loan are key to empowerment.
For Ogbaji Seaman, the youth need skills in their various interested fields to excel. How can the youth ministry help with repayments with 0% loan?
And Ogo Waje again, very enthusiastic this morning. He says, do we even need a Ministry of Youth Affairs? All we need is a reorientation of the youth and an enabling environment to succeed. All right, well, thank you for your tweets. Of course, you know that we have a number of guests in the studios. Mr. Obin Aruakwa, let's get your closing thoughts before we call it a day on today's discussion.
Okay, way forward, so we don't make it a contest between the aged and the youth. We need a Ministry of Youth, and we need a Minister for Youth. And we're not saying the minister. He had said that in an abnormal nation, let's face it, abnormal situations demand abnormal solutions. Mahatma Gandhi told young Indians, this was a man that was 26 years in South Africa as a lawyer, came back patriotically to India and told the Indians, if you must watch TV, let it be an Indian-made TV. If you must drive a car, let it be an Indian-made car. And that's how he came up with the Hindustan, the first ever Indian car. And then the president, the first ever Indian TV. What did we do in Nigeria? We started consuming from India. We can do that. I was listening to the MD of System Specs, and he said that the money we spent on importing foreign software for BVN, for ID card registration, and the INEC registration shouldn't have gone to Canada, shouldn't have gone to Japan, shouldn't have gone to Germany. We have software developers in Nigeria. All they need is to be recognized and to be helped.
Instead of the Yahoo boys.
Instead of Yahoo boys. Even the Yahoo boys is negative orientation. Even the armed robber is a very smart, intelligent person. It's just that he has been negatively motivated. Now, so the minister, and I'm happy what you told the minister, Kingsley, to devolve this relationship down to state and local government. One example I'll give you. We have 41 items banned by the Central Bank of Nigeria, categories. 682 items identified by the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. What I will humbly request the minister to do is to take that list, 41 categories, I can make it available to him directly from the Central Bank, and do import substitution. I'll give you, number one on that list is rice. We have Das rice. We have Abakaleke rice, where you have Ebony today, sponsored by the Central Bank of Nigeria. But a simple example is we just came out of December and Christmas festivities. How many Nigerians consumed locally made items? Okay. How many people use Nigerian-made items? Access to market is an issue. Small and Medium Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria has come up with an online portal. Young people have come up with e-commerce sites. As I speak to you today, we can do this.
Because we're so much pressed for time, really, we'd like to take some other guests' closing remarks. Okay, Dr. Angel Adelaja, of course, let's take a look at the biggest interest here. What exactly do we need to do moving forward to actually make the young person remain relevant?
What I'll say is, one of the major things that we need to do is stop saying, I think this is the best. I think that was the best. Give me the data. Show me what it is that actually, show me the numbers. If you can show me the numbers, if you can do the research, we have National Bureau of Statistics that is being underfunded, it's not being properly utilized. Coordinate with other ministries. I think that if we, and like I say, if we start thinking in silos, it's not going to be beneficial for the youth. So start to coordinate with other ministries. I think also talk to the youth. I mean, one thing that my company does is we don't just farm, but we also make agri-technologies that makes the barrier to entry affordable for youth to get into agriculture. We make container farms for urban farmers and greenhouses and things like that. But we've not done anything with government, and we're not even interested because we're focused on how we can get to the people. So let government start to seek out the people who have solutions. Let's look at solutions. Let's look at empowering the youth rather than worrying about who has which funding or which program seems to be the best. If you're going to say that.
All right, Dr. Angel Adelaja, speaking to us from our Lagos Network Center, I would like to thank you for your contribution to our discussion this morning. All right, and then we also would like to thank Mr. Obina Oruakba for his coming to the program and for his contributions as well. Mr. Oruakba, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's farewell to the youth leader from today's program. And then we also would like to thank Dr. John Abuere. We're pressed for time now. We have other segments to take. Dr. John Abuere, we're sure that some other time we'll have the opportunity of elaborating on aspects of youth empowerment. All right, thank you, Dr. Abuere.
Thank you.
And then we also would like to thank the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports, Mr. Solomon Dalong. Mr. Dalong, of course, your ears have been filled today with remarks and comments. We'll thank you for your time and also for your participation in Good Morning Nigeria.
You're welcome.
All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take our companion segments now, and here is our correspondent with the sports details.
Nigeria's early exit at the 4th African Nations Championship in Rwanda meant no Nigerian players made the list of the CHAN team of the tournament. The Confederation of African Football (CAF) released the starting 11, which had 4 players from champions Democratic Republic of Congo. Chizem Chikatara, the most outstanding Super Eagles player at the tournament, could only make the substitute bench. Tournament top scorer and most valuable player of the championship, Mitchell Ella, who scored 4 goals and made 2 assists, headlined a strong 11 that has Chico Kota, Sheikh Ibrahim Kamara, and Uguzen Save. The Nigerian Football Federation (NFF) has concluded plans for a 3-day seminar for match commissioners in the country ahead of the kickoff of the new football season. Already, the league management company has announced that the Nigerian Football Federation season will kick off on Saturday, 21st of February, while the Nigerian National League has set Saturday, 27th February for commencement of its new season. The Nigerian Women's Football League season will start on Saturday, 28th of February, while the Nationwide League will commence on Saturday, 17th March. Secretary of the NFF Match Commissioners Appointment Committee, Danlami Lanano, says about 1,000 match commissioners are expected to grace the annual event, which has now been segmented into 3 days. Players and officials of Nigeria's flag bearers in this year's CAF Confederation Cup, Nasarawa United have arrived in Abuja for the Sunday's first-round first-day clash against AS Academic Generation Foods of Senegal. Although their opponents are yet to communicate their date of arrival to the Nigerian Football Federation, Nasarawa United FC chairman Isaac Danladi said on Tuesday that his players are focused on Sunday's game and not when the opposition will jet into town. Also this weekend, Nigeria's other flag bearer in the CAF Confederation Cup, Super 4 champions Aqua United will travel to Congo to play Club Mukunda in the CAF Champions League. Wadi Wolves will host Paracruz, while 2-time champions and MPFL defending champions will fly to Uganda to play Vipers FC.
Okay, from sport now, let's take a quick look at the weather prospect for the rest of the day.
We're glad to have you join us on the weather segment. The day is expected to begin with dust haze and improved visibility over the extreme north, while the central cities to the coast would observe moderate visibility of 2 to 5 kilometers. For those living around Mina, Bida, and Abuja, expect poorer visibility compared to neighboring cities. Well, we really don't anticipate much change as the day progresses. So let me take you further as we see the temperatures for the day.
Thank you very much, Imara Joyce, with the weather prospect for today. And that's it on Good Morning Nigeria for today. We appreciate your company, and tomorrow definitely is another day. Thank you for watching. My name is Blessing Abu.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo, and I join Blessing in thanking you for starting your day with us. And as she said, the program returns same time tomorrow, 7 o'clock in the morning. Do have a nice day.